Have you ever loved someone so deeply that your heart ached in silence? That no matter how close you stood, how many words you exchanged, they never truly saw you? This is my story, a story of loving without being loved back, a story of silent heartbeats. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where sunlight filters softly through library windows, scattering across worn wooden tables and the spines of countless books. I was there, quietly seated, when I saw her. She laughed without a care, tossing her hair back, and the entire world seemed to fade, leaving only her in focus. My heart skipped, my chest tightened, and in that moment I realized I had fallen, not with a whisper, but with a storm. Yet I said nothing. My words froze, trapped somewhere between my chest and my throat. Every heartbeat felt like it was writing her name on my chest in invisible ink. I wanted to walk up, to speak, to say anything, but fear held me captive. What if she didn't notice me? What if I ruined the fragile connection that already existed? So I watched, silently, and I began imagining 1,000 conversations that would never happen, 1,000 smiles we would never share. Pause for 10 seconds for reflection. Every day after, I found myself looking for her, in the library, in the coffee shop, on the street where she passed by like sunlight itself. I memorized every detail, the tilt of her head when she read, the soft tap of her fingers on the table, the way she frowned slightly when she was deep in thought. No one else seemed to notice these tiny things. No one else would ever care. And yet, I felt them, as if they were messages meant for me alone. Days passed and we began talking. Small things at first, a shared smile, a joke about the weather, a comment on the book she was reading. To anyone else, it would seem ordinary, but to me, it was everything. Every little interaction felt like a universe expanding in my chest. I memorized the curve of her smile, the way she chewed her pen when thinking, the subtle tilt of her head when she was curious. And still, she didn't see me the way I saw her. I began living in those small moments, replaying them over and over in my mind. Each word, each laugh, each fleeting glance became a treasure I hoarded silently. I tried to imagine her life without me, and it hurt more than I expected. How could someone so bright, so full of life, never notice the person who loved them quietly from afar? Sometimes I wondered if she even knew I existed beyond the occasional smile or polite nod. And yet seeing her happy, even if it was with someone else, was enough to keep me coming back. I told myself, this is enough. Seeing her is enough. But deep down, I knew it was never enough. My heart wanted more, though my lips never dared to speak. I began noticing patterns. The books she borrowed, the songs she hummed, the way she lingered at the coffee shop window. Every detail was a message I wanted to decode. And slowly I realized that loving her wasn't just about hoping for her love in return. It was about being present, even when invisible. Loving her quietly, in the spaces between words, in the pauses of conversation. That was my reality now. Every laugh she shared with someone else cut me in tiny shards. And yet I smiled, because her happiness mattered more than my own. And so I stayed, a silent observer in the theater of her life. No one would notice the longing in my eyes, the ache in my chest. But I did, and somehow, that was enough to keep me alive in the storm of unspoken love. Then came that evening, the message I had been silently longing for. Can we meet? I need to talk. My heart raced, my palms were sweaty. Finally, maybe she feels something too. Maybe today, the walls she had around her heart might crack just enough for me to slip inside. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, rereading her words. Every scenario played in my mind, every hopeful. I arrived at the park where she wanted to meet. The soft glow of the street lamps made her hair shimmer like gold in the evening air. My heart ached with anticipation. I rehearsed my words in my head. Tell her now. Don't let fear stop you. And then she appeared, smiling, warm as sunlight, holding a small coffee cup in her hands. I thought for a fleeting second that maybe the universe had finally bent in my favor. She spoke, and my chest tightened. I needed advice about someone. My stomach sank. She was asking me about him, not me. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Of course, I'll help. I listened. I laughed when she laughed. I nodded when she asked for my opinion. And inside, my heart broke silently, piece by piece. Every smile she gave to him, every hopeful glance, every sigh, felt like a tiny betrayal. And yet I stayed. I couldn't walk away. Not yet. Loving her in silence had become my existence. Even heartbreak had become comforting because it meant I was still a part of her life, however small. After she left, I walked alone through the streets, the city lights reflecting on the wet pavement from earlier rain. Every step echoed in my chest, a reminder of my solitude. I whispered to myself over and over, tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow she will see me differently. Maybe tomorrow. And I knew it was a lie. But hope, even false hope, was a drug I couldn't quit. Her birthday arrived quietly, the way all important days seem to. I had known about it for weeks, marked it in my mind, counted the days without meaning to. I told myself not to overthink it, but my heart didn't listen. I bought a gift. Something simple, something safe. I held it in my hands for a long time, wondering if it was too much or not enough. When I saw her that day, she looked happier than usual, surrounded by laughter, by voices that weren't mine. I waited. I always waited. When the moment finally came, I stepped forward and handed her the gift. My hands were shaking, but my face pretended everything was fine. She smiled, a real smile, the kind that once made my chest feel like home. She hugged me tightly and said the words that would stay with me forever. "You're such a great friend. I don't know what I'd do without you." Time slowed. The room faded. And in that instant, I understood everything. I smiled back. I had practiced that smile for moments like this. "Happy birthday," I said softly, hiding the truth in my voice. I walked away before she could see my eyes. That night alone, I sat with the weight of loving someone who would never love me back. And for the first time, I stopped hoping. There was a moment when everything felt different. It wasn't loud or dramatic. Nothing obvious happened. No grand confession. No sudden realization. Just a quiet shift in the air that made my heart pay attention. She stood closer to me than usual that day. Close enough that I could hear the softness in her breath when she laughed. Close enough that every small movement felt intentional, even if it wasn't. Her words lingered longer. Her smile stayed with me even after she looked away. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine something I had always pushed aside. Not a fantasy, not a daydream, but a real possibility. I imagined us outside of stolen moments and polite conversations. I imagined what it would feel like to be chosen, to be seen the way I saw her. For a brief, dangerous second, I believed that maybe I wasn't alone in this anymore. The words rested on my tongue, heavy, fragile, waiting. All I had to do was speak, but silence has a strange way of protecting us from truths we're not ready to face. She spoke first. Her voice was gentle, familiar, safe. And then she mentioned someone else, not with excitement or hesitation, just casually, as if it meant nothing at all, as if it wasn't quietly undoing me. She talked about them the way people talk when their hearts already belong somewhere else, without fear, without doubt.
Without knowing the damage being done in the space between her words, I smiled. I nodded. Primera listened, and in that moment, everything I had been holding onto collapsed without a sound. Comfort for connection. I was never standing at the edge of something new. I was only standing close. While she waited for someone else, I didn't lose her that day. I lost the version of the future I had been secretly carrying. And somehow, that hurt even more. Letting go didn't happen the way people talk about it. There was no final conversation, no confession, no dramatic ending that gave me closure. Life simply continued, and I had to learn how to continue without the version of her I had built inside my heart. I still saw her, still heard her laugh, still stood close enough to feel the familiarity of what once felt like hope. But something in me had changed. I was no longer waiting, no longer imagining, no longer building futures out of moments that were never meant to be mine. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was unlearning the habit of loving her quietly. I stopped looking for signs that didn't exist. Stopped replaying conversations in my head. Stopped wondering what I could have done differently. Some feelings don't end because of mistakes. They end because they were never shared. There were days it hurt more than others. Days when a song, a place, or random memory pulled her back into my chest without warning. On those days, I didn't fight it. I let the feeling pass through me instead of letting it stay, and slowly, without announcing itself, peace began to arrive. I realized that loving someone who never chose you doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It means your heart was brave enough to feel deeply, even when the risk was losing. I never told her how I felt, and maybe I never needed to. Some loves aren't meant to be spoken. They exist only to teach us something about ourselves, about patience, about boundaries, about knowing when to walk away with your heart still intact. So this is how my story ends. Not with her choosing me, but with me choosing myself. And some wrote that was enough.